County judge rejected a request by 4 people convicted in the shooting deaths of the Lillelid family back in 1997.
On April 6, 1997, a family of 4 pulled into a rest area on Interstate 81 in Tennessee. They were returning home from a religious convention, tired but happy. The father smiled at 2 young strangers and asked a simple question. "Do you believe in God?" Within 2 hours, 3 members of that family would be gone, their bodies discovered in a muddy ditch alongside a remote country road. The 4th victim, a 2-year-old boy, would survive with devastating injuries that would change his life forever. But here's what makes this case truly chilling. The people responsible weren't hardened criminals or experienced offenders. They were 6 teenagers, the oldest just 20 years old, who would later claim they were trying to start Armageddon. Just days before the attack, these 6 troubled youths had gathered in a trailer where they made a disturbing announcement. One of them declared that the end of time was coming on Sunday, April 6th. They had spent the previous night at a motel, burning the number 666 into the carpet and engaging in rituals that showcased their descent into darkness. They had already committed armed robbery, stealing weapons and cash from a police officer's home. Now they needed one more thing: a reliable vehicle to escape. What they chose to do to get that vehicle would shock even the most seasoned investigators and leave a community asking one haunting question. This wasn't a crime of passion or a robbery gone wrong. The evidence at the scene told a story of calculated execution. The family had been lined up along a ditch and shot one after another. They weren't harmed all at once. Members of the family witnessed other members being harmed. Tire tracks showed that the attackers had driven over 2 of the victims as they fled. Yet when investigators searched the suspects after their arrest, they found something bizarre. Worthless personal items belonging to the victims. A piece of a belt, a Hello Kitty diary lock, a photograph of a 6-year-old girl. These weren't valuable items worth stealing. They were trophies. But trophies of what? And why would 6 teenagers from broken homes in Kentucky choose this particular family for such extreme violence? What makes a group of young people capable of such calculated harm? How does a simple act of kindness, a father sharing his faith at a rest stop, transform into one of the most brutal family attacks in Tennessee history? And perhaps most disturbing of all, if any one of the 6 attackers had said stop at any point during that terrible night, would this tragedy have been prevented? The answers to these questions reveal a case so complex, so disturbing, that even decades later, the truth about who did what remains disputed. Each of the 6 tells a different story. The forensic evidence contradicts many of their claims, and the sole survivor, now grown, has no memory of the night that took everything from him. Vidar Lillelid was born in Bergen, Norway in May 1962, the youngest of 4 siblings. In his 20s, he made the bold decision to move to Florida, where destiny introduced him to Delphina, a vibrant woman from New Jersey born in March 1969. The couple married in February 1989 in Miami, and soon welcomed their first child, a daughter named Tabitha. Seeking a peaceful sanctuary away from city life, they found their dream home in Knoxville, Tennessee. By 1995, their son Peter arrived, completing their family. By the end of 1996, they had settled into a charming house in the Powell community, even planning to renovate an annex for Delphina's mother. Vidar worked as a bellman at the Holiday Inn Cedar Bluff in West Knoxville, while Delphina dedicated herself to homeschooling their children. As devout Jehovah's Witnesses, their faith wasn't just a Sunday practice, it was the foundation of everything they did. Friends from their congregation described them as the kind of neighbors you'd want: hardworking, loving, and always willing to share their beliefs with anyone who would listen. While the Lillelid family built their life on faith and stability, 6 young people in Pike County, Kentucky were spiraling into darkness. Each member of this troubled group carried heavy burdens from their past: broken homes, academic failures, and experiences of emotional and physical mistreatment. Substance use, including illegal substances and alcohol, was the common thread connecting their stories. 20-year-old Joseph Reisner had once been known as a good student, but everything changed after his mother and stepfather divorced. The split pushed him into a world of drinking and substance use. Initially dating one member of the group, he later became involved with another, showing the unstable relationships that defined their circle. 18-year-old Natasha Cornett was perhaps the most troubled of all. Desperate to escape her harsh reality, she claimed to have been in contact with supernatural forces since she was 4 years old. This early exposure fueled a growing fascination with dark practices. Over time, she began referring to herself in disturbing terms and displayed violent tendencies. She often talked about her desire to live out the chaotic storyline of her favorite film, Natural Born Killers. From a young age, she had been using alcohol and experimenting with a range of illegal substances. 17-year-old Karen Howell grew up in a violent household and claimed to have experienced assault between the ages of 5 and 10. Like Natasha, she had a fascination with the occult and regularly used illegal substances. The two young women were extremely close, bound by their shared darkness. 19-year-old Edward Mullins seemed to have the most stable life among them. He was focused on earning his educational diploma and worked at a grocery store. But once he started dating Natasha, everything began to change for him too. 14-year-old Jason Bryant, the youngest of the group, was already on probation despite his age. He had a troubling history of substance use, and, with an IQ of around 85, his emotional and social skills were significantly underdeveloped. In a bizarre attempt to prove his toughness and earn respect from the group, he even allowed Natasha to carve her initials into his arm. 18-year-old Crystal Sturgill was a relatively new member. While she did well in school, she faced emotional neglect at home. In December 1996, she accused her stepfather of serious crimes, which led to her being thrown out of her house. For the next few months, she stayed with various people, including Natasha. 2 days before their encounter with the Lillelid family, the six stayed at the Key Motel on US 23 in Pikeville, Kentucky. What happened in that motel room revealed just how far they had descended. They burned 666 into the carpet and engaged in rituals that showcased their twisted beliefs. Following their stay, they returned to Natasha's trailer, where they shared chilling news with her mother, Madonna Wallen. They announced their intention to start Armageddon, with Karen declaring that the end of time was coming on Sunday, April 6th of that year. On that same day, the group took a dangerous step. They devised a plan that led them to the home of a local police officer. While Jason created a disturbance outside to draw attention, the others entered the home. In their reckless pursuit, they managed to seize 2 weapons, 2 boxes of ammunition, and around $500. Now they had the tools for violence. All they needed was a reliable vehicle to escape. On April 6, 1997, the Lillelid family attended a religious convention at Freedom Hall in Johnson City, about 100 miles from their home. The day was filled with hope and community spirit. After the convention, they began their journey back home in their reliable 1987 Dodge minivan. Around 7:20 p.m., they stopped at a rest area on Interstate 81. 2-year-old Peter, restless and suffering from an earache, needed attention, so Vidar decided to take him for a walk. Meanwhile, Delphina and Tabitha headed to the restrooms. As Vidar and Peter waited by the visitor center, 2 young women emerged. Vidar, ever friendly, smiled and asked them if they believed in God. To his surprise, they replied that they did not. Just then, 2 young men joined the scene. When Vidar offered to share more about his faith, one of the men responded with interest. This encounter marked the beginning of a tragic turn of events. The 2 young men were Joseph Risner and Jason Bryant. Alongside them were Natasha Cornett and Karen Howell. As Vidar began to explain the basics of the Jehovah's Witness faith, Delphina and Tabitha soon joined them. But suddenly, Joseph returned from his car where Edward Mullins and Crystal Sturgill were waiting. In a shocking twist, he pulled out a weapon and declared, "I'm sorry about this, everybody. Just be quiet, and nothing's going to happen to you. All we need is the van." Joseph's blue Chevrolet Citation was barely running and wouldn't last much longer. He had just received a speeding ticket, adding to his anxiety about getting caught. They were also in a tight financial spot. Desperation hung in the air as they needed a reliable getaway vehicle. With the weapon in hand, Joseph ordered the family to return to their minivan. Vidar, hoping to defuse the situation, offered to give the group his wallet and keys, but they refused. The Lillelid family was forced into the van alongside Joseph, Natasha, Karen, and Jason. Vidar was made to drive, and as they pulled out of the rest area, Edward and Crystal followed them in Joseph's car. During the terrifying drive, Delphina did her best to keep her children calm by singing, but her attempts were met with frustration when Jason snapped at her to be quiet. In the middle of all this chaos, young Tabitha, with her innocent heart, tried to lighten the mood by offering Karen one of her chocolates. It was a gesture of pure kindness from a child who couldn't comprehend the danger surrounding her family. Just before 9 p.m. that night, 2 calls came into emergency services. reporting the sound of weapons being discharged on Payne Hollow Lane in Greenville. One neighbor claimed they heard the sounds and noticed two cars pull up, but only one drove away. The second caller, a contractor working on a nearby water tower, reported hearing two quick bursts, followed by chaotic noise. Deputy Jeff Morgan and his supervisor arrived around 9 p.m. They first spotted the headlights of a blue Chevrolet Citation oddly angled on the road. It looked abandoned, stuck on a stump in the muddy ground. The car was empty and its license plate was missing, but what they discovered next to the car would haunt them forever. In a ditch nearby, they found 4 bodies: a man and a woman, with a young boy and girl resting on top of them. 6-year-old Tabitha was draped over her father, Vidar, while 2-year-old Peter was lying on his mother, Delphina. All 4 had been shot, and Vidar and Delphina's legs were marked by tire tracks where they had been run over. As police processed the scene, little Tabitha made a slight movement, prompting officers to rush her to the hospital. Doctors at the University of Tennessee Medical Center in Knoxville worked tirelessly throughout the night to save her, but tragically she passed away the following day. Meanwhile, Peter lay across his mother's body, his face in the mud. When Deputy Jeff Morgan turned him over, Peter let out a heartbreaking cry. The deputy quickly sat down and held him close until the ambulance arrived. Peter was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered he had suffered severe spinal damage and lost an eye. They feared he could have suffocated if he had been left in the mud any longer. Against all odds, the 2-year-old survived. During the examination of the victims, authorities determined that the family had been lined up along the ditch and shot one after another. Vidar was believed to have been harmed first. He was shot in the right eye, an injury that would have knocked him unconscious instantly. While lying in the ditch, he was shot 4 more times. Delphina was initially shot in her left arm and then in her left leg. Neither wound was immediately fatal. However, she received 6 more gunshot wounds, and investigators believe she was still alive during the attacks on her children and when she was run over by the minivan. Tabitha suffered a single gunshot wound to the head. Peter was shot twice. The first struck behind his right ear and exited through his right eye, and the second hit him in the back as he tried to escape. The Chevrolet Citation had gotten stuck on a tree stump, forcing the 6 attackers to abandon it and flee in the minivan, driving over Vidar and Delphina as they sped away. Although the license plates had been removed, authorities traced the owner through the vehicle identification number. It led them to Joseph's mother, Mary, who informed police that she hadn't seen her son in 2 days and didn't know where he was. However, she provided the names of the other 5 members of the group, all of whom were also missing. The police now had clear leads on who they were searching for and the vehicle they were traveling in. As the group made their way through Georgia, they stopped at a Waffle House for food. However, when a group of police officers entered the restaurant, they quickly left, clearly on edge. They had originally planned to head to New Orleans but changed their route and aimed for Mexico. Upon reaching the border, they were denied entry because they didn't have proper identification. After some effort, they managed to find a way into the country. However, things took a turn when Jason Bryant was shot in the hand and leg during their time in Mexico. The group was eventually stopped by Mexican police who, upon hearing their claims of being lost, ordered them out of the van for a search. During this search, officers discovered a weapon and a photo album that belonged to the Lillelid family. After being ordered to return to the United States, they crossed back over the border where American Border Patrol officers conducted another search. It was here that they were arrested and taken to a facility in Arizona. Shockingly, just 2 days after the attacks, several of the suspects still had personal items belonging to the Lillelid family in their possession. Natasha had a piece of Vidar's belt and a picture of Tabitha tucked away in her purse. Karen was found with a Hello Kitty diary lock that belonged to Tabitha, and Crystal had the keyring from the Lillelid family home. None of these items were of any real value, suggesting they were kept as trophies from their actions. The district attorney planned to pursue the most serious penalties. The judge ruled that a fair jury couldn't be found in Greene County, so one would be brought from Bradley County. The trial was set for March 1998, but it never happened. In February of that year, all 6 defendants pleaded guilty as part of a plea deal to avoid the most serious penalties. The truth of who fired the fatal shots remains unclear. Natasha, Karen, and Joseph claim Jason was the sole shooter. Jason insists it was Joseph and Edward. Crystal maintained she never left the car. All 6 received the same sentence: 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus an additional 25 years for Peter's case. Appeals for the juveniles, Karen and Jason, were later denied. All 6 remain in prison in Tennessee to this day. As for 2-year-old Peter, who survived the attack, His life took a significant turn following the tragic events. After his medical condition stabilized at the end of April 1997, a custody battle ensued between his maternal grandmother, Lydia Celaya, residing in Miami, Florida, and his paternal aunt, Randy Heyer, living in Sweden. The deciding factor in the case was Heyer's commitment to raising Peter in the faith and teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses, honoring his parents' wishes. On July 1, 1997, a local judge awarded custody to Heyer. Peter was raised in the Stockholm area by Heyer and her family. This tragedy reminds us to stay aware of the warning signs in troubled youth and to support those struggling with darkness before it's too late. If this case moved you, please share this video to spread awareness and subscribe to help us continue bringing important stories to light. Together, we can work toward preventing future tragedies by understanding the past. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and never take a moment with loved ones for granted.